So I want to talk a little bit today about posture. It seems like many of the clients that I saw in the last couple of days, and often not just in the last couple of days, but in massage, the neck, shoulder, in between the shoulder blades kind of area that tends to be one of the many culprits that happens when we have poor posture and sit at a desk or at a computer much of the day. So I know that all of you work hard not to do that, and that's great. But even if you're not working, 10 hours a day, staring at a computer screen at a desk, hunched over, we still, all of us, our culture sits a little too much. Other cultures not only move more, but when they are stationary, they tend to squat more. There's also all sorts of ways that we can help the scenario of sitting too much. I try really hard to stand up at my computer as much as possible instead of sitting down. But we're meant for motion. We are absolutely meant for motion. We are not meant to kind of solidify and ossify in this seated forward motion position all day long. So a yoga teacher I know, she just put a little bit of a summary about what happens to our body when we sit, and I want to read you the list because you're just going to be shocked. Okay, so when we sit at a desk for a long period of time, we have our chest collapses. We have restricted movement of our diaphragm. We compress our abdominal organs. Our adductors, those are the muscles that hug our thighs together toward each other, get overused. Our hip flexors, like our psoas and the muscles that lift our knees up toward our chest, get really tight. Our neck gets overloaded from the forward flexion. Our upper back gets strained and tense. We have increased pressure on our spinal discs from that hunched forward posture. There's distortion of the lumbar curve from rounding the lumbar spine instead of that slight arc that should be in there. And then lastly, we get gluteal amnesia. I think I taught a class, I don't know, not too recently, but about gluteal amnesia and how our glutes, when we sit for a long time, can just they can go to sleep and they can get very weak. And some people can literally have numbness in their glutes from oversitting. So, I mean, that list is long, but on top of that, there's an increased risk of depression. There's stagnation of your lymph movement, low bone density if you're not, moving and doing weight-bearing exercise, if you're just sitting all the time, a lack of joint lubrication from the lack of movement. You can get computer vision syndrome, where our vision starts to get distorted from staring at a screen. There's an increased risk of heart problems and blood clots. There's a decreased lung capacity when we are sitting like that and not opening up and moving our lungs fully. We get a compression in our digestive tract, and all sorts of things can ensue from there. A sluggish metabolism and an increased risk of blood sugar control issues when you eat and then don't move immediately after, but rather just sit. So, I mean, that's a really long list of problems, right, that can happen when we spend a lot of time just sitting. And it seems so normalized in our culture that this is just the way we spend our day. So even if you're not at a screen at a desk, try to take notice of how much you are sitting in your day. It'd be interesting if we all have these tracking devices of watches and rings and things, that it would be interesting to track how much of the day you actually are just sitting. So even though you may not have a device that's doing that for you, try to pay attention over the next few days of really noticing how much time you spend sitting and how much time you spend in other movement patterns, whether it's actually moving or just standing or lying down. So what we're going to do in our practice today is work on good posture, because when you have to sit or when you want to sit, It's important to have the structural strength in your body to be able to sit with good posture so that you mitigate some of those issues that the long list of issues can be mitigated simply by good posture. If we want to have better lung capacity, if we want to not compress our discs or compress our internal organs or have neck and shoulder tension or hip flexor tension, if we want to alleviate some of these things, just having good posture can help. Good posture comes from a lot of core stability and from having strength in the back of our body and not over relying on that slumped posture. So we're going to do just a little bit of that in our practice today. But bravo for just doing yoga. Any movement that you do, whatever you love to do, if it requires movement, bravo. This is one of the best things that you can do to counteract some of this stagnation that can happen from seated postures. All right, so let's close our eyes and find our way to a comfortable seat. And remember, asana in the Yoga Sutra, the only quote about asana, the postures of yoga, is that they're given so that we can sit comfortably for meditation. So think of the postures as helping us to get to a place where our posture is sound and we can be self-supporting to mitigate some of these challenges. All right, so close your eyes and notice how you're sitting. Okay. Are you up high enough? Do you have a good placement of your pelvis and your legs? Is your pelvis neutral and not rolled back or rolled forward or tipped to one side or the other or shifted one hip forward or the other? So kind of take notice. Do you always sit with your legs crossed the same way? Maybe switch your legs and choose a slightly different path. Sometimes just choosing the path less traveled gives us greater awareness of what's happening. When you're after noticing and kind of stabilizing your pelvis in a neutral place, pay attention to your legs. Are they gripped and tight, or are they in a healthy place where they're relaxed and at ease? There's no rules that you have to sit on the floor or on a cushion. You can be sitting in a chair. You can be in Virasana. Any posture will do. If you can stabilize the lower body to be a good base of support. And then before we kind of open up the spine, let's just take a moment to notice your breathing. And maybe just for a moment, kind of do a habitual slump, something that feels familiar in your body that might happen after a while where you're like sick of having to hold your posture. Just allow that the tendency to slump, however that forms itself in you. And when you do this, notice what happens to your breath. Notice your diaphragm and notice your internal organs. Is there enough room for what you need to keep all those metabolic activities alive and well? And then let's change this into a better posture. So feel a longer spine. And let's notice immediately if anything shifted in your diaphragm, in your internal organs, in your breath. And you can kind of go back and forth and just experiment, just like we would kind of roll back and forth on our pelvis to experiment. You can slump and lift and just experiment and notice the maybe not so subtle but quite profound changes that happen when you have good posture. And then what's holding you when you find yourself floating on those discs where we're not compressed? And there's lots of room for your breathing and the movement of your organs and your diaphragm. What's holding you here? Is it an over tension in your hip flexors? Do you have good strength in your back? This is, a good place to kind of notice the stability of our core and the stability of the muscles along the posterior chain of the spine. Are your shoulder blades rolling forward, or can you feel them have a little action on the ribs? It doesn't have to be a full-blown effort. You don't have to squeeze and push and tighten, but is there action? Is there awareness of aliveness in those shoulder blades holding your back? Can you feel the muscles along your spine? Are you aligning yourself well? Is your crown over your tail? Are you in good posture and good curves where you feel the natural curves of your spine, which are good for weight bearing? Is your head neutral? Are your eyes, if they were open, facing the horizon line, or is your chin dropped down? So try to be in this place of full strength in the body to support, but only what you need and no more. Good alignment of the head and spine, shoulders, shoulder blades. A sense of openness in the heart and lungs and diaphragm. A sense of mobility in the organs and stability in your legs and pelvis. Now, we don't stay here too long in the beginning of practice, but training yourself to stay in good posture is a beautiful thing to do. And so lots of what we'll do today will be to be in support of this. Let's bring our hands together and lift your sternum a bit, just a bit, to rise toward your thumbs. Notice if you compress the back body when you do this. Let's try not. You want to be active without compression. Enjoy the full, deep inhale. And enjoy the full, long exhale. And in this space of centering, let's place an intention. Release the hands. All right, let's find our way onto our back. Okay, and stretching out and lengthening. One of the greatest things that you can do besides cultivating all the strength in the back of our body and awareness of our posture is to take breaks when you do have to sit for long periods of time, because you must, you're working, whatever it is, you're driving, whatever it is, to take breaks often, to move your body. And it can be small snacks of breaks. It does not have to be stepping away from your desk for an hour. It can be stepping away for 5 minutes. Okay. All right, let's reach and lengthen the body. Extend, open up. Maybe reach one side a little longer, the other side a little bit longer, and just enjoy opening up. A big breath in, a big breath out. And then draw your knees into your chest and let's rock and sway. Okay, maybe a little rocking from side to side. Okay. All right, hang on to the knees and let's circle. And notice just subtle little movements across your sacrum and in your hips is very lubricating. Remember that motion is lotion. We want mobility, we want movement as much as we can through the day. All right, let's open up our knees away from the middle, bring them back in, and just enjoy what's available in those hips today. All right, and then right knee, a good snug hug in, and let's roll around in your ankles, moving your feet. Maybe some flexes and some points or anything that feels good. And we'll try to reach every single joint in the body in our warm up. That's the goal anyway, is to touch every joint we have. Okay.
All right, let's cross the right knee over to the left and stretch out through your chest. Feel free to slide the arm around and get some mobility in the shoulder joint. And feel free to rock a little bit in your twist if that feels better. You know, a lot of times when we're first starting to wake up our body, a little bit of movement instead of a static hold can sometimes be a really nice way of lubricating joints. Stretch out to a star, reaching your limbs wide. Let's roll the wrists and the ankles. And let's open and close our fists. Maybe wiggle your fingers and just feel all those bones in your feet and hands. And then when you're ready, draw your knees into your chest, pick up your head, a snug hug. And then release your head back down, right knee into your chest, stretch your left knee into your chest, stretch your right leg long on the ground and keep moving around, getting your calves to start opening, feeling those shin muscles. You can, wag your feet left and right. So we open up those muscles on the sides of your calf too, your peroneals. And then release open to a star. One more time, opening your body. I promise we'll do the twist. I didn't forget. Exhale, knees into your chest. Head comes up. Right. Left knee into your chest. Right leg long on the ground. Twist open here. And maybe a little bit of a rocking motion if it feels nice. Maybe a little bit of a sweep of the arm if that feels nice. And one of the beautiful things about warming up is that we get to say hi. We get to be in our body and welcome ourselves into the fold. And what a joy to just notice your body, to have kindness and grace toward your body. And let's stretch open again, reaching into a star. Exhale, knees into your chest. Put your head down, grab onto your feet, a little bit of a happy baby pose. And let's just open up the back of your lumbar spine and feel free to rock a little bit here, left and right. And we're just kind of opening up the low back a little bit, playing with a little expansion in those discs. And then let's find the inner thigh. So rock a little bit to the left and open up the left leg straight. And then rock a little to the right and open up the right leg straight. We're just kind of going back and forth between the left and the right sides, letting your knees bend and straighten. All right, and then relax. Put your feet onto the ground. Let's do a couple of bridge poses here, moving our arms too. So ground the four corners of your feet. Let's lift the hips high, arms overhead, and then exhale and lowering back down, kind of waking up a bit of that posterior chain, feeling our hamstrings and our glutes turn on. We'll kind of erase any of that gluteal amnesia that might be present in your body. I always like to take notice also when I do something like this, to notice, is one side of my body more awake than another side of my body. A lot of times we can have glutes that are more active on one side than the other, so let's pay attention. All right, and then relax your pelvis back down, arms out to the side, and let's windshield wiper our knees left and right, just letting your hip joints open up in this way. A little internal and external rotation, opening up your side waists a little bit, feeling into that movement of your vertebrae. And then roll to your right side, palms together, knees together, feet together. Let's open up like a book. So a deeper twist now. And then exhaling to come back to center. Again, just finding that mobility as we start to find our way into our thoracic spine and our cervical spine. And the ribs, see if you can feel where the joints are, where your ribs connect to your vertebrae, as well as your ribs connecting to your sternum. Okay, and then relax that. We'll roll over to the other side. Arms out, knees together, feet together, right angles with your legs. Start to twist open and close. Okay, so we're just mobilizing the thoracic spine here, getting the chest and shoulders to open up, making sure you're turning your head as well. Start to invite awareness of your breathing as we start to feel our way into that upper body. And then reach our limbs wide to a star one more time. Exhale, knees into your chest. Put your head down. Last stretch on our back. Cross right thigh over left thigh. Draw your knees in and maybe a little bit of pulsing. Just opening up the hips a little bit, the glutes a little bit. Remember to release your head on the ground nice and heavy. And then release the legs straight up in the air, arms overhead, stabilize through your core. Start to wake up your core. Let's flex and point our toes here. Root the ribs down toward the ground, maybe some circling with your feet. And then we'll lower our legs down to the ground, left thigh over right thigh. Draw knees into your chest, maybe a little bit of pulsing here. All right, last star, reaching our limbs out wide, and then exhale, rolling to our side and coming up onto your hands and your knees. As you find all fours, notice as we progress off the ground, what shifts, what changes, and now we'll start some cat-cows. So we're feeling the fullness of our spine now. Move as slow or as fast as you'd like so you feel that fullness of the vertebrae, opening up front body, opening up back body, feeling your breath. And then after a few rounds of just flexion and extension, do the movement you want to do. Maybe you're a tail wagger, maybe you're a rib cage roller, maybe you're a head spinner. All right, so just kind of explore, give yourself some time to lubricate your spine, your ribs, your sternum, your collarbones, your pelvis, all the little places. And we're remembering that movement doesn't have to be extreme in order for it to be effective for moving our lymph, for keeping our organs supple and mobile, for keeping our breath moving, for nurturing our disc spaces and getting them hydrated. We don't have to be extreme to find these benefits. Okay. All right, drop back into child's pose. Walk the hands forward. Feel compression in your knees and hips and openness in the shoulders. Take a full big breath down the body. All right, we'll walk the hands over to one side or the other so we open up our side frame. Feel the rib cage expand and pry open. Breathe into all that space. Back to center, walk the other way, opening up your ribs, opening up your discs, opening your breath. Come back up onto all fours, a little bit of freedom. Move your neck around, move your head. Maybe when we do a cat-cow, you can open your jaw and stick your tongue out and lift your eyes. Oh, and then as you exhale, push the ground away. All right, neutral spine. Let's open up to a twist here, reaching one arm up in the air. Let's roll the wrists and open up the fingers. Exhale, slide that shoulder down and twist open here. Feel the back body open again. Big breath in, big breath away. Feel free to come out of there a bit and face the ground if you like that posterior shoulder stretch a little more than the twisting. And then inhale, bring that arm all the way back up in the air. Hand down, switching sides, arm up, roll around in your wrists, move your fingers. Exhale, twisting your spine. Gaze downward with your eyes so your neck is nice and at ease. Breathing deeply here. Noticing how your breath moves in your body. Can you feel your belly rise and fall? And when you're ready, reach that arm back up in the air again. Hand comes down onto the ground. Well, almost to a dog pose, but walk forward to a puppy pose first. So the hips stay high, the chest drops down. Spread out the bones of your hands really well. And then come back up to all fours and wag your tail. Take your two blocks, stack them next to each other, just a little bit of deep elbow compression and tricep extension. Walk your knees back, hips can stay high, curl your toes under if you'd like. Thumbs toward your spine, lengthen elbows to your pelvis. Big breath here. Right, and take a little bit of kneeling forward, release those blocks, hands onto the ground, and let's come up to a dog pose. Right, so take some time, kneading the floor, pedaling, just finding your way into a more full body experience here. Feel free to drop one heel way down, bending the other knee. Just find the movement of your legs that feels good, the movement of your neck, of your shoulders, anything that gives you a sense of releasing a little bit, opening a little bit. And then when you're ready, ground. Stop that movement and just ground. Find your breath. Full inhale. Belly moves. Full exhale. All right, walk your feet forward, a deeper back body opener now. Feel a forward bend. Inhale for a halfway lift, put your hands on some blocks. Let's pedal your feet again. Try to pay attention to your hips a lot now. So draw one hip way back as you bend the opposite knee. So we're just kind of opening up those outer glutes, the outer hip muscles a little bit. Feel free to rock on your feet, onto the toe, onto the heel. Kind of waking up. This is so good for our lymph. Everything we've done is so good for our lymph. All right, and then ground yourself again. Fold deeply. Push off the ground and rise up. If you know you get dizzy and a little lightheady from that down and up, take some time to adjust, squeeze to the midline if you need. Take a deep breath in, lift up a little bit of a back bend here, reaching your body broadly. And then let's open up cactus, the arms squeeze through the back of your body. Exhale, rounding in. Arms coming up. Spread out to the sides with your palms. Spread your palms really wide, fingers pointing toward the sky. Maybe your arms roll back a little bit, maybe some movement, some circles, just getting some of those nerves to open up in our upper body. And then release. Some big shoulder shrugs here, backward shoulder shrugs. Okay, all right, and give your hands a good shake. Interlace your hands behind your back or grab a strap if you need. Open up across your chest. And then let's fold forward and stretch the fronts of our shoulders open. Bobble your head and let your neck relax. Breathing deeply. And then melt, release your arms. Interlace your fingers at the base of your skull, tug down and in, chin towards chest. Inhale for a halfway lift. Melt to fold again. Step back to a lunge. Right foot in front, left foot behind. Okay. Open up the heart. Now we start to feel the front of the hip flexors finding their way into some spaciousness. Let's bend and straighten the front knee, getting our sciatic nerve glide in now. So we're feeling, that not only are we loosening our lymph and our joints and our tendons and our ligaments and our muscles and our organs and our breath, but we're also stretching our nerves. Okay, put your back knee down onto the ground for a moment. Just enjoy that hip flexor stretching, opening. This is a counterbalance to that sitting posture, letting that hip flexor of the back leg find its day in the sun. All this sitting, when we compress our knees closer in, we have to counter with some extension in our leg. All right, come back up off your knee, walk your back foot forward and find a fold. A halfway lift. Relax, melting back down. Step the other foot back, lunging this way. Left foot is in front. Let's do some sciatic nerve glides on this side. So we straighten our leg, maybe bow your head and pick up your toes, maybe not, just see where you are. Find your way back and forth with your breath between lunging and straightening. Lots of space in your spine. And then when you feel ready, back knee onto the ground, just open up through that hip flexor stretch here. Press your front heel down into the ground. Lift that knee back up in the air, turn sideways on your mat, hands down onto the blocks or ground, opening up the inner hamstrings a little bit more. Drop into an inversion. Heel toe your feet in a little bit and come to a deep squat. Elbows inside your knees, opening up those inner thighs. These are those abductors that tend to get tight from sitting at a desk. So we're opening them up, grounding the four corners of your feet. Okay. And then inhale, standing up, standing star. And then bring yourself back to neutral. So now notice where you are. We've pretty much touched all of our body. We have found all of our joints. We've kind of touched into all of the main muscle groups. Find your way into your breath now. Notice if you feel better. If you spending a half hour of just all the ways that we can find our joints and our lymph and our movement and our breath, how does it make you feel? And now it doesn't have to be a full half hour every time you take a snack of movement, but just notice how good movement feels. Nothing we've done is extreme. We haven't, climbed a 14er. We haven't stayed in a squat for 5 minutes. We haven't jumped around. We haven't ran a sprint. We just moved our body. Notice the fullness of your breath.
Reach the arms up in the air. Okay. Stabilize the ribs, unlock the knees, and ground your feet. Melt the base of the skull. And start to feel the center body, the core and the back of your spine. Supporting just something simple, but not always so easy, just lifting your arms overhead. Feel that posterior chain of the body wake up. A lot of these muscles are what we need for good posture. Release your arms down. Touch your toes, unless you like doing a chair pose in a different way. You can always have your feet hip width apart. You can always use a block. Reaching the arms up overhead again. Now feel the back body. Okay, lots of work along the spine. Try to draw your rib cage in a little bit and draw your knees back into your hips. Melt through your neck. Try not to hold the tension by hugging your ears up toward your shoulders up toward your ears, but integrate through the core of your body. Push into the ground so you feel your glutes helping you. And then slowly rise up all the way to your tippy toes. Maybe bring your arms out for a little extra balance. Big breath. Heels come down. All right, let's come to the front of our mat. We'll do a vinyasa. Inhale, arms coming up. Exhale, floating back down. A halfway lift. Open up through the spine. Exhale to melt. Palms down, back to a dog pose. Feel that extension. Come forward into a plank. We're going to stay here a moment. Push the floor away. Feel the shoulder blades on the back. See if you can integrate through the core of your body. Your ribs hugging in. Your core hugging in. Inner thighs lifting toward the sky. We'll put our knees down onto the ground and find the earth. Maybe a shoulder roll. Inhale to a cobra pose, opening up that front body. Exhale, relaxing back down. One more time, opening up. Exhale, lowering back down. Put your hands underneath your forehead for a moment. Just lift your right leg up. Stabilize your core at the same time. So can you feel that integrity of your glutes working with your core? And then lower that leg down onto the ground, switching sides. Stabilize your pelvis, use your core, lifting that leg. See if you can pay attention. Does one side feel like it works harder than the other, or your glutes alive more on one side than the other? Relax and melt back down. Come up onto all fours. Move and wag your tail, see what feels good. And let's stretch our right leg straight back behind you. Take your left arm out in front of you. Bird dog is such a good stabilizing pose for feeling both the front of the body and the back of the body supporting the spine, recruiting and turning on a lot of those muscles that we need for good posture. Can you feel the posterior chain? Can you knit your ribs in and draw your navel toward your spine? All right, hand down, knee down. We'll switch sides. And remember, you can take a fist onto the ground. You can always take a forearm on a block if you need it, if your hands are unhappy bearing weight. Press your shin into the ground. Navel towards spine, ribs in. Feel the strength of the back of your body, your hamstring, your glutes, the back muscles. Finding your breath. Notice where you get fatigued first. And down. knee down, come back onto your heels, give your hands a little shake. We have one more little sequence to do on our hands here. Okay. Come back onto all fours. Let's take the first leg out again. Okay, so left leg, right arm, stabilize your spine. And we're gonna lift our thumb up and our toes down, and we're gonna come out to the side. Arm and leg out to the side. Stabilize your core. Breathing deeply, finding your inhale and your exhale. All right, come back to center. Place that hand and knee down onto the ground. Other side, right leg, left arm, thumb up, toes down. Integrate the core. When you feel ready, arm and leg cantilever out. Plug back in toward your center. Keep your neck neutral, look down. Finding your breath, shoulder blades down the back. And then come back to the center line. Child's pose. Take your hips and let them compress. Open up your back and breathe. Come on to your back. Have some blocks handy. You might need them. Okay. Find your way onto your back, knees bent, feet on the ground. So we're just going to do some tail dragging first before we lift into some bridges. But first, just ground yourself. Feel your feet. Press your feet into the ground. Okay, and now we're going to imagine our tailbone dropping into the earth and drag it toward your shoulders. Just turning on those quadratus lumborum muscles, those deep low back muscles, and then release and relax. These muscles, when we sit in poor posture for long periods of time, tend to get held locked long, where they're not flexing, they're lengthening, but then we have to use them to hold ourselves. And that can be very trying on these deep low back muscles. So let's engage them concentrically, short engagement. So we're pushing the tailbone down and dragging it toward our shoulder. Feel those low, deep back muscles engage and release. So we're going back and forth. We're not holding the contraction. We're just dragging our tail toward our shoulders and then letting go. One more time. This is part of that posterior chain of the body. It's not just the erector muscles, the muscles along our spine, but it's also these deep stabilizers. Okay, relax and melt. We're going to grab a block and stick it between our thighs. We've done this before with 3 different positions of the block, but we're just going to do one position of the block, kind of a midway. So if you have the block in between your knees, put it in the mid distance of the block. If you have your block a little closer to your pubic bone, then have the narrow distance of the block between your thighs. So you're just going to experiment where you want the block to be. And we're going to try not to let those strong adductors, those inner thigh muscles, do all the work. So sometimes I like to have the block at my knees so that I don't have that direct impact on the adductor. So if you are an overuser of your inner thighs, try putting the block between your knees instead of at your inner thighs. But if you're a little amnesiac in your deep low core muscles, sometimes putting the block a little closer can give you a better to the pelvis, can give you a better access. So experiment, and we're just going to ground the feet, 4 corners, and just like we just did the dragging of the tail, we're going to pulse into the block and release. Keep the outer feet connected into the ground, and as we hug the block, try to make the action happen from our deep abdomen and pelvic floor instead of our inner thigh muscles being the guiding light. See if you can let the deep core and pelvic floor be the leaders. Sometimes it helps to put your hands on your low belly. Imagine those hip bones you feel,
drawing toward the midline, toward each other. Inner thighs are the back seat drivers, not the front seat. Coordinate with your breath. Exhale as you engage. Inhale as you release. And notice again, just like we've done a couple times already, are you stronger on one side than the other? Do you have a sense that, your core is, you have more engagement in your leg, your hip, your core on one side than the other? All right, now relax that. Let's take the block out of there, feet on the ground, and we're gonna lift to a bridge pose. So ground the four corners of your feet, lift your hips high, climb onto the tops of the shoulders, find that full bridge, press your arms down into the ground, palms facing up. So our triceps, our back muscles, our deep low back muscle, our glutes, our hamstrings, the whole back chain of the body is engaging and working. Have an ever so slight seesaw of dragging your heels toward your shoulders and then pushing your heels away. Drag them a little bit toward your shoulders and push them away. Subtle, this is subtle. Make sure you're breathing. Again, notice if you have any amnesia in your glutes, is one side stronger than the other with hamstrings, glutes, or back? Relax and melt back down onto the ground. Okay. Windshield wiper your knees to release. Turn your head in opposite direction of your knees. Breathing well. Breathing fully. All right, we're almost up off the ground. We'll get back up to stand in a moment. Arms overhead. Okay, find your breath. Knit your ribs down toward the ground. All right, now bring your arms straight up in the air. Imagine that you're holding a heavy weight, and you could do this with weights if you feel inclined. But you can imagine holding like a box that's very heavy, and you want to bring it back toward the ground behind you without dropping it. Stabilize your pelvis, stabilize your ribs. Inhale, bring your arms back up. Imagine something heavy. Drop your ribs down, arms come overhead, feel that core engage, and then lift your arms back up. This next time, we're gonna bring our arms overhead and have them on the ground, leave them there. You can always put your arms down at your sides for this if you need. Bring your knees up in the air, arms overhead. Feel that extension. Let's reach the legs straight. Knit your ribs in. Find how do you keep your spine long in this pose? Feel all that stability. This is a great way to strengthen the posterior chain and the core at the same time without having to worry about compression in your spine because you're on your back. Gravity's helping you to keep your spine open. Breathing deeply. Root your femur bones down, root your ribs down, stretch your spine long. And then slowly, let's lower our knees, and you can always bring your arms down at your sides to do this. You can bend your knees whenever you need to, lowering the legs down to the ground. Once they're down there, let's stretch our limbs wide to a star again, or reach one side and then the other, however you want to release, and we'll roll to our side. Come up onto your hands and your knees. One more plank pose. So take your feet back, push the ground away. Hopefully you're starting to feel a little fatigued in your core, so you can feel how much core work a plank has within it. Lengthen your spine. Drop your shoulder blades down the back. Find your breath. Lots of core stability. Hug your ribs in, your navel in. And then walk it back to a dog pose and feel all that extension in your spine. Imagine someone had a strap on your thighs, lifting your femur bones back. Big breath in, long breath away. And then walk your feet forward. Bend your knees and bend forward and feel that openness in the back body that you've been working so hard. Inhale for a halfway lift. Melt to fold again. Push off your feet, rising up. Bring the arms to the sky. And release your arms down. Take your right foot in front and your left foot back, heel down onto the ground. Inhale, Vira 1. Reaching the arms into extension. Push your feet into the ground. Engage the glutes on both legs to support the lift of your spine. Can you feel all those muscles we've been working? And release your arms down, lean forward, palms facing the ground, triceps engaged, back body engaged. Knit your ribs in, root your feet. Hands down onto the ground, back foot comes forward, feel that neutrality. A halfway lift again, melting to fold. Step your other foot back, grounding your legs. Inhale, rising up, Virabhadrasana 1 on this side. Okay. Lift off your hips, press your feet, engage your glutes. Feel all those muscles along the posterior chain of your body lift and lengthen you. Big breaths in and out. And then when we're ready, we'll lean forward, arms back, palms facing the ground, triceps engaged. Feel the muscles along your spine, root your legs. Knit the ribs in. Feel long in your spine. And then bring your hands back down onto the ground. Back foot comes forward, touch your toes. One more time to a chair pose, reaching your arms up. Feel that symmetry now, where our glutes are working in unison, our hamstrings are working in unison, our back body is working in unison. Knit your ribs in, draw your knees back. Inhale up onto your toes. Exhale, release your arms. Take your legs wide, wide-legged stance. Relax and melt your spine. Big breath. We're going to put all that together for one pose and then we'll release our body. Okay, so walk back forward to the front of your mat. Come to a plank. And lower yourself down to the ground. You can choose to have your arms out at the sides, up overhead, or wherever you want them to be. You can even have your elbows bent if that's a preference for you being able to use your back body well. So choose an arm placement that feels good. Before we lift up into a full super person pose, engage your core. Okay. Find that stability of the front, holding the back, and then lift everything you have up. And remember, experiment. I like to have my elbows bent sometimes. It gives me a different sensation in my back. Big breaths in, big breaths out. Use your glutes. And then relax. Good job, everybody. That's a lot of back body work we did today. Left knee up high toward your armpit. Get your blocks out of the way. Turn and look at your foot. Just let your back open, your hip open. And then we'll find a twist. Thread that right arm underneath you and twist open. Maybe a little rocking, a little seesawing between hand and knee. Big breath. Release your spine, all that hard work you did, let it go. Come back to center, switching sides, knee up. Look at your knee, just let your back open. And then when you're ready, thread the needle and twist your body open. Maybe a little seesawing, rocking if that feels good in your body, maybe stillness. Whatever you're doing, we're breathing deeply, making sure your back feels nice and supported. Back up, come into child's pose, open up the back of your spine. Feel free to put your arms anywhere you want. Sometimes I like putting my hands on the small of my back, palms up. You do you. All right. We'll come onto our back for some rocking plow. Feel free to do a happy baby pose instead. So whatever feels good for your body. All right. As we come to rest, I would recommend support underneath your knees right now to soften that back line of the body. Gosh, we could have done so much more. There's always more, right? Always more to be had. So if you want maybe blocks with a blanket on top of the blocks for underneath your thighs or your knees or your calves, wherever is comfortable for you. But having a soft bend in the knee will help release and relax the core and the back body, which we worked a lot with today. So once you're comfy, let your body melt. And let's just be so thankful for mobility, for any of the movement practices, all of the movement practices that you do. Let's be so thankful for our body in motion. And let's also be so thankful for a body at rest. And to deepen our breath again. Feel your spine spread out on the ground. And invite any movement that feels good in your body. Finding your way to your side. Bringing yourself upright when you're ready. Let's open our heart. Bring your hands together. Let's offer the gifts of our practice. Send your love and care outward. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.